Hello everyone, it's Sandra and welcome to the next installment of my little 5 faves series. Today we're talking about foundations, and if you missed the last episode of this little series, I talked about my top 5 favorite concealers. I will have a link to that up on the screen somewhere and in the description box below if you want to check that out. But today we're talking about foundation, and foundation is one of my favorite makeup products to buy. I own an obscene amount of foundations. I have worn and tried an obscene amount of foundations. I'm definitely at the point where I know what I want. I know what I like. My taste in foundation has definitely changed over the years. I used to suffer from pretty bad acne, and like any insecure 20, 25-year-old, I just wanted to cover it all up with as heavy of a coverage as possible. Matte full coverage foundation used to be my jam. I used to then set it with a powder foundation. I now prefer more light to medium foundations with more of a natural finish, but I still do not want to compromise on longevity. I do have oily combination skin, and while my skin is not as oily as it used to be, I'm still acne prone, but knock on wood, knock on everything, I don't break out as much as I used to. I feel pretty strongly about the top 5 that I'm going to be sharing with you today, with one caveat. Since one of my top 5 foundations has recently been discontinued, makeup companies like to torture me like this, there will be a 6th foundation that I'm going to be talking about. I guess I'll start with lightest coverage to heaviest. Let's begin with the foundation that I'm actually wearing today, and it's also the foundation in my top 5 that is the most frustrating. This is the Armani Cushion. Its full name is the My Armani To Go Essence and Foundation Cushion SPF 23. It has a very lofty name. It's a beautiful product. You have heard me go on and on about this product over the last year. I bought it soon after it launched in Canada. I bought it at Holt Renfrew on a total whim. I was just shopping with my friend Dina. We were in Toronto, and I was like, oh, there's a new Armani foundation. I love Armani foundations. I love cushions. Dream come true. Add to cart. It does everything I want a foundation to do. Has a light to medium coverage, but it's more on the light side. It lasts all day on my skin. I can wear this in the winter. I can wear this in the summer. I even like applying it with the little sponge that it comes with, which I usually don't. It has this perfect little edge so you can get into the nooks and crannies. You can really cover everything with ease with this. It's a really great applicator. And whenever I go over my skin with this foundation, it's like I take a magic eraser and it just erases everything I don't like about my skin, but it leaves the most beautiful, natural looking texture behind. You cannot tell that you're wearing makeup when you're wearing this. It's really good. Now, the things that frustrate me about this foundation: you cannot buy refills for this in Canada. You can only buy the compact. So I'm very lucky that I had, 2 of my best friends. They were traveling in Europe. They were both in France, and on each occasion I was like, hey, pop into Sephora and grab me a couple refills, because I don't want to spend the full amount. This is an expensive foundation. I don't want to spend 85 Canadian dollars every time I run out of this, which is faster than running out of a regular foundation because you only get half the amount. I don't know why they don't sell refills for this in Canada. I'm hoping that they will at some point. The other thing that frustrates me about this is that the color range is abysmal. I am lucky that I found a perfect color match for this. I'm shade 4.5. In the summer, I can go up to shade 5.5. I think 5.5 is the darkest that it comes in, which is just completely unacceptable. But with that being said, if you are on the fairer spectrum, even if you're super fair, I think that you can get a color match in this formula because it is very skewed in the fair direction. In the United States, this is still not available. I keep hoping that they're going to come out with this glorious inclusive shade range and then finally launch it in the United States. I don't know if they're ever going to release it in the United States. I know that a lot of brands do that, and they kind of cater to different markets differently. So this is a very frustrating love for me, but a love nonetheless. Next up is by Terry Sheer Expert Foundation. Now this is a foundation that is now discontinued. This is like a go-to winter, spring, daytime foundation for me. It wears beautifully, looks very, very natural. Shade number 7, Vanilla Beige, is a perfect match for me. In the summertime, if I want to wear this, I would have to go up to shade number 9. This was a beautiful foundation. I'm not going to go on about it too much since you can't get this anymore. You might be able to find it at some places as they're trying to like push the stock away, but Really enjoyed this. I used to also be a big fan of the Cover Expert foundation by this brand, but then they reformulated it, added SPF to the formula, and it hasn't been quite as good. Cover Expert is a more medium to full coverage foundation. Sheer Expert is more light to medium. Very buildable, very natural. I'm going to enjoy this. I actually hogged a couple of backups. Very similar to the Sheer Expert, but more of a summer foundation for me is the DIOR Face and Body. This is such a beautiful foundation. This completely took me by surprise. I bought it as soon as it launched because it came out around the royal wedding, and this is a foundation that Daniel Martin used on Meghan Markle on her wedding day, and that kind of piqued my interest because I thought that she looked really beautiful and natural, and this is an incredible foundation. This is the only foundation I want on my face during the summer, especially during the day. I can put this on in the morning and it lasts all day without looking heavy and cakey. This is, again, a light to medium foundation, and it just wears beautifully on the skin without looking like you're too made up. Now, they claim that this can be buildable to like a solid medium to full coverage. I don't think so. I think that this foundation performs best in like the light to medium spectrum. I have a perfect color match in this in the summertime. I use the shade 2WO. I'm also really curious about the two new DIOR foundation formulas that have launched this year, the Forever Skin Glow and then the regular Forever. I was not a fan of the original DIOR Forever foundation, but hopefully the reformulated one will be better. I am curious to try both of those at some point this year, but until then, Face and Body is my jam. I also really love the bottle. I find it really chic. I know some people get frustrated with it being messy, but I haven't had any spillage issues with it. Even like the way it smells, and I like to apply this with fingers or with a damp sponge. Next up, we have the famous Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. I remember when I first bought it back in my oily, acne-ridden face days, this was just not enough for me. It didn't last well on my super oily skin, and it did not give me the coverage that I wanted. But now this foundation is perfect with what I'm looking for. This is my go-to winter evening foundation, and it's such a great special occasion foundation for me. It looks super beautiful, yet it has a very solid medium coverage. It just blends so easily on the skin, and you just look really flawless and perfected. It photographs beautifully as well. The shade range and the undertone selection is very solid as well. I use this in the shade 3.5. It is confusing because shade 3.5 is darker than shade 4 and shade 4.5. So I definitely suggest getting a sample of this, maybe from Sephora, or try and get color matched in store, see what it looks like in different light, because I definitely went through phases of owning this foundation and it not just not doing it for me, but right now I am loving it. The last two foundations that I'm going to talk about are pretty similar. One is slightly more coverage than the other, but they're both more of a matte finish. They're like a satin matte finish, more medium to full coverage foundations, and I adore both of them. And we have the LANCOME Teint IDOLE foundation and the YSL All Hours foundation. LANCOME Teint IDOLE, while I love wearing it by itself, for me, this is the foundation that I go to when I want to mix it into more mediocre foundations to make me like them more. If I have a foundation that is just not performing well, especially in terms of lasting power, I add a pump of this in it and it just magically ends up lasting all day. This is how I ended up using up my IT Cosmetics CC cream. While I love the finish of it, it barely lasted 2 hours before it started to slip and slide all over. This mixed with IT Cosmetics CC cream was a dream come true. That was my go-to workday combination for me for a long time, and it wore beautifully all day long. So this is my go-to mixer if I want more longevity. Very solid shade selection as well. 230 Buff W is my perfect color match in this foundation. This kind of replaced the L'Oreal Infallible True Matte foundation. I used to use the Infallible foundation by L'Oreal in the same way, but the Lancome colors are so much better, and I don't have a color match in the L'Oreal formula. So Even though this is more costly, I think this is a beautiful foundation, and especially if you are an oily combination girl, this will be a foundation worth your time. I know my friend Samantha Jane here on YouTube, she has oily skin as well, and she did a beautiful wear test all day with this foundation not too long ago, and it just looked incredible on her as well. And she has, I think her skin is a bit oilier than mine right now, but this is fab, and it has earned a firm spot in my top foundations. The YSL All Hours foundation, while I have not reached for it too much in the last year, this will always have a special place in my heart because this is a foundation that I used on my wedding day. I was just like flabbergasted at how beautiful my makeup looked all day long. I did my own makeup. It was super, super hot that day as well. This foundation just looked so good all day long. It's definitely in like the medium to full coverage category, and it has a satin matte finish. This is a foundation that I would reach for if I had a special occasion. It was hot, it was humid, I need medium to full coverage, I needed to stay on all day. This is a foundation that I would reach for. The most similar foundation that I have to this in my collection is Estee Lauder Double Wear, but this is a little bit less coverage than Estee Lauder Double Wear, and I just find it to look less heavy. It's like a thinner consistency, but in terms of longevity, on my skin, it lasts just as well as Estee Lauder Double Wear. And I use this in the shade BD35, which does not match me right now, but it does match me in the summertime. One word of warning, if you're trying to color match yourself in this formula, do wait for it to dry, because when you first apply this, you'll think that it's too light, but it definitely dries down about a shade darker. Those are my top 5/6 favorite foundations that I own, and I feel like with those foundations and the primers and luminizers and skincare concoctions that I do, I can pretty much achieve any look that I want. So super, super happy with those. I cannot wait to hear what your favorite foundations are, whether you have a top 5 because you're foundation holic like me, or if you just have 1 or 2 holy grail foundations that you have just been repurchasing over and over, and that if all your foundations magically disappeared, you only had to buy 1 or 2, what would they be? Let me know in the comment section below. I cannot wait to hear your picks. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.